Monday, everybody. Welcome to the newest edition of Bet. I'm your host, Erin Dolan. We got a packed show for you guys. We're talking all things NBA as well as the NFL. We got two special guests for you. I would tell you who they are, but I want you to watch this entire show so that you are able to see who it is. But first things first, yesterday was Father's Day, and I had myself a grand old time with my dad, went to dinner, but this also broke. So right now we're hearing about a Bradley Beal trade, but nothing is official just yet. But for the trade details, you got Bradley Beal would be traded for Chris Paul, Landry Shamet, several second-round picks, and some other pick swaps. So that, of course, breaking on Father's Day. So let's bring in Andre Snellings to talk more about this trade. We know he knows everything NBA. Andre, thanks so much for joining Bet today. How you been doing? I feel like it's been a while since we've been doing this show together.
Yeah, I've been doing good. The NBA playoffs and finals were a ball to watch, and yesterday was Father's Day, so I'm up right now.
I know. I guess, is it happy belated Father's Day? I'm not even sure if people say that. But nonetheless, I know you and I are really big in the NBA. And, of course, it wrapped up with the Denver Nuggets winning the NBA championship. And you think things are going to slow down. And then all of a sudden, free agency is creeping up on us. Then we got the NBA draft. The next thing you know, it'll be October. But that's neither here nor there. Let's talk about this Suns situation. So what's your reaction to this trade?
First reaction, I think it's extremely interesting to consider an offense built around Devin Booker as the lead guard, a role that he's really thrived in recently. And then you add Kevin Durant and Bradley Beal as high efficiency, high volume scorers, shooter scorers around them. They could be the best offensive trio in the NBA by both talent and fit. But defensively, the Suns already traded away much of their defensive talent in the last blockbuster that brought in Durant, and going from Paul to Beal is another defensive drop-off. So I have to feel like if they really want to contend, the front office has to be busy wheeling and dealing during that free agency and draft and trade process to bring in some defensive talent.
Yeah, defense is a great point, as well as just that depth in general. It feels like it's great to have these big names, but are they actually going to be able to win a championship if they don't have depth and don't have good defense? Of course, things are going to change over the next couple of months, but I do think this team is going to be a good team. I'm just not sure they're going to win it all. And speaking of winning it all, we could talk about the NBA futures. So they were plus 900. They're all the way down to plus 600. Is there a futures bet that stood out to you after the news of this? And again, not official, but the news that this is likely to happen.
Yeah, so I don't have them as the favorites as currently constituted, in part because of what I just said about the defense, and in part because of what you just said about the depth. All three of their new main players have a questionable history with injuries, and when you don't have a lot of backups behind that, that makes it hard for me to see them as the favorites to come out of the West. I still have the Nuggets, the Lakers, and probably the Warriors at least ahead of them out West. And then when you get to the East, you know, the Celtics, the Bucks, and your 76ers, I have them ahead as well. So I'm looking for them to make moves. If they can bring in a couple of big men that are defensive-minded role players, like the forwards they traded away for Durant, then maybe that plus 600 can be warranted. But for right now, I'm staying away.
Yeah, right now I'm staying away as well because honestly, with those injuries, it feels like they're just looming on us. Bradley Beal last season, he only played 50 games. Kevin Durant played 47. Devin Booker played 53. One of those guys goes down. You don't have depth. You don't have a good defense. It's not going to look good for the Suns in the regular season, let alone the postseason. Moving on, though, here, our last question for you. We're a long way from obviously betting player props and whatnot, but is there something that you will be looking for in terms of Devin Booker, Kevin Durant, or even Bradley Beal? I know at the bottom of the screen that you're seeing, we did have Kevin Durant as well as Devin Booker MVP odds very close to each other.
Yeah, so, I mean, as far as props, I'm looking for Devin Booker to have the best numbers. I expect him to average somewhere really in the upper 20s, but also to get up to around 7 or 8 assists because he's really thrived in that role. And I think that could potentially get him into the MVP conversation if the Suns have some success. I think that Durant's numbers probably look a lot closer to what they were with the Warriors, about 25, 26 points per game. So if his props are set anywhere near the 30 points per game he was at last year, then I'll be looking under for him. Same with Bradley Beal. His last 7 seasons, he's averaged 25 points per game. I see his line at closer to 20, maybe a bit over that, but if his line's at 25, I'm going way under. And there's not a line you could set that's low enough for me not to go under for DeAndre Ayton props right now because he was barely scoring even after Durant got there. Now that you've added Bradley Beal as well, I just don't see a future for him producing on this team.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you bring up DeAndre Ayton in general just because we're not really sure what's going to happen with him as well. Things could happen in free agency, and it seems like the team didn't really want him to stay. It seems like he didn't really want to stay at points. So even now seeing this big free, and we're obviously already talking about as if he will be playing next season for them. But all things considered, a free agency is looming. We also got the NBA draft, and like I said, before you know it, it'll be October. So Andre, thank you so much for joining Bet today. Hopefully I see you again soon. I just came in my mind, the last time you were on this show, I'm pretty sure you were in Aruba, at least when you did it with me. So you were enjoying yourself a pina colada. This time, much different situation.
I wish I had one now.
All right, let's switch it over. Oh, you and me both. I went to Aruba the week after you. Don't remember much of it. Shouldn't be saying that. All right, moving on. Get rich quick. This is our new segment. Again, we're switching over to the NFL, and we're going to bring in another guest. I told you we had two special guests, and that is Eric Moody. You guys know this is one of my favorite people to come on the show. We did a lot during the NFL season, and that's why, of course, we have to talk about this topic with him today. Eric, how have you been?
Yeah, things have been going great. You know, I was getting excited listening to you and Andre talk about like mixed drinks. You know, it is summertime. It is hot down here in Texas, but things are great. Father's Day went really well, too. I had a nice meal and time with family, so can't complain.
Yes. Love that, love that. And yeah, I know you were dealing with some NBA news around the Bradley Beal trade as well, which, you know, if you work in sports, things just never end. But let's get to this Get Rich Quick segment. Again, a new segment. So essentially, the premise is that you're gonna tell me an NFL future that you think in which a team is going to be able to hit their win total first. So which teams stand out to you as some of these teams that will be able to cash in maybe earlier in the season than rather, let's say, at the end of December or January?
Well, I will tell you, Erin, the first team that comes to mind is the New Orleans Saints to get over 9.5 wins quickly. Now, the Saints had a great offseason. They added Derek Carr, which was huge for this team. And I do believe that they'll benefit greatly having him under center. Now, he's surrounded by playmakers. Of course, he's got Chris Olave there, Michael Thomas, keeping my fingers crossed that he's healthy. Alvin Kamara, got Juwan Thompson as well. So he's got great playmakers. And one thing about Carr and Olave, which I like, I believe this will be a duo that we'll be talking about quite a bit in 2023. And really going to help propel the Saints to 9.5 wins quickly. Now, I want to tell you something about Olave, Erin. At the second best rookie season in Saints franchise history with 72 receptions for 1,042 receiving yards. Now, get this. Olave was one of 9 receivers last season who accumulated 1,500 air yards, had at least a 20% or greater target share and 2+ yards per route run. Now, some of the other wide receivers that he's aligned with in this area are Justin Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb, A.J. Brown, Tyreek Hill, Devontae Adams, Stephon Diggs, and Amari Cooper and Terry McLaurin. Now, the Saints had a solid defense last season, a very good defense. They had a chance during the offseason to address some of the issues that they had, so they're set for success. But when I look at all these different factors, Erin, one that really is screaming out to me is their schedule. It really positions them for success. You look at the NFC South. It's not going to be daunting just considering the other quarterback situations in the division. You know, the Panthers are going to have Bryce Young, rookie. Buccaneers are going to have a carousel with, we'll say, Baker Mayfield and Kyle Trask. I have a feeling both will get starts. You also have the Falcons. They got a second-year quarterback in Desmond Ridder. Now, it's a similar trend against the AFC South because they play that division as well. You got Trevor Lawrence, he's great, but you've got Anthony Richardson in Indianapolis or Gardner Minshew that's getting starts. You got the Texans. They've got C.J. Stroud, rookie, and they got Ryan Tannehill in Tennessee, who's been up and down. But the Saints also face the NFC North, which gets me excited. As I mentioned with the NFC North, I'm like, they're not projected to have like any upper echelon defenses in 2023. And you look at the rest of this schedule, you got the Giants, that'll be a tougher matchup. The Patriots, they're rebuilding, even though they won't admit it. And you also have a depleted Rams team. So in my opinion, these are all very winnable games. And again, this is a Saints team that could surprise people in 2023. So.
Absolutely. And I like that we broke down the schedule that way. And you make a great point. Mainly about, obviously, on offense, you're going to look a little bit different with Derek Carr under center, but they're still going to be very good. But it's really that defense, and that's what's most important in a weak division because you mentioned the other teams and all the stuff that's going on in the quarterback situation. Shout out to Baker Mayfield. This guy's saying that Vegas is betting against him. I'm pretty sure we're all betting against you after that comment, but nonetheless, we won't get into that. Another time, another story. But in terms of that defense, the Saints, they allowed the 5th fewest yards per game, the 9th fewest points per game last season. They should be very, very good. If we look at some of their futures markets, so to win the championship, 35-1, never going to do that. Conference, 14-1, not going to do that. Make miss the playoff. I do believe that there's a chance that they make the playoffs, considering I do believe that they would win the division. I would rather take them to win the division at plus 120 rather than say make the playoffs, because obviously by association, if they win the division, they're going to be in the playoffs. But I don't like it, obviously, at minus 180. So I do have high expectations for the Saints next season. We know the Bucs were able to win the division at 8 with just 8 wins last season. So this really, really is that weak of a division. That, of course, was with Tom Brady. Now it's a totally different situation. So I do like the Saints to win the division. I like what you're putting down in terms of the 9.5 wins and getting to that. So now that we've talked about the Saints, is there another team that's on your radar in order to hit their win total a little bit earlier in the season?
There is, and this may surprise people that are watching and bettors out there, but I really like the Green Bay Packers to get over 7.5 wins quickly. And so I know bettors are wondering, what is this Packers team going to look like with Jordan Love under center? You know, he's had a chance to sit behind future Hall of Fame quarterback Aaron Rodgers for the last 3 seasons. And I will tell you, I'm like, this is a team, you know, with Love under center that could surprise people. Like, he's got Christian Watson, Romeo Doubs as his top 2 wide receivers. They're expected to make a significant jump in their second season. So you've got that going on there. You also have the Packers offensive line, which is in really good shape, in my opinion, heading into this upcoming season, which obviously benefits Love from a pass protection perspective. But also, let's not forget about the running game. You've got Aaron Jones and you've got A.J. Dillon. I'm like, this is a duo that combined for almost 1,900 yards and over 600 receiving yards last year. You look at this Packers defense, they were loaded with talent last year, and they still have a lot of talent going into this year. They were the best defense in the division when you look at different stats that are out there. However, I will tell you the thing that really let down Green Bay's defense last year, which is something I believe they'll fix going into this year, is really their consistency. They weren't as consistent as they needed to be. But you look at the schedule. The Packers do benefit from playing 6 games against NFC North opponents. None of those teams are going to have in the division strong defenses. I don't see any of those defenses finishing the year as like a top 20 unit, you know, based on the offseason changes that they made and how they performed statistically last season. But also, you know, we talked about the NFC South a moment ago, Aaron. The Packers have 4 games against the NFC South that don't have super intimidating defenses either. So when I look at all these different factors, you know, Jordan Love, the team that's built around him in this defense, I do believe that the stage is set for the Packers to get off to a very fast start this season. So Green Bay should hit 7.5 wins sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm just going to be honest. I don't know if I could agree with this one. The other one I definitely agreed with. The only issue that I have is that I feel like with the Packers, one, for their win total, I do like under 7.5 wins. So I just have to say that off the bat. I've given this out on Daily Wager. I can't go back on it. I'm just a little bit concerned about Jordan Love being under center because Matt LaFleur's come out. He said it's going to be a transition. And obviously, we're so used to seeing the Packers with Aaron Rodgers under center. But the thing about the Packers with me, one, they're only favored in 3 games this season when you look at that schedule, which makes me a little bit nervous. I know the NFC North is, you could call it semi a cakewalk, but at the same time, the Lions last season, they exceeded expectations with 9 wins. You got the Vikings, they had 13 wins. I expect them to regress, so maybe they're able to get some wins quickly, even potentially against the Vikings. But I mean, they went 11-0 in 1-score games. That's not going to happen again. But I just feel like there's a part of me that thinks this is going to be a rebuild year somewhat for the Green Bay Packers. Now, what's working in Eric's favor, though, is that you think that they are going to get over the 7.5 wins, get to that the quickest. This is a number that's low. This is a 7.5. This is not, hey, I think the Eagles are going to get over 11.5 wins and you have to wait till week 18. So it's a little bit different here, the situation. It's we're trying to get rich quick. That's the whole point of this segment. I'm not big on the Packers this season. I like the under, but everything Eric's putting down, it could be a team that hits over their win total a little bit earlier than we expect. But Eric, I cannot wait for the football season. I feel like we're already talking about it. I know you're going to be really involved in the fantasy side of things and also be joining us on some of our shows for bets. So we'll be looking out for everything that you're going to be putting out heading up to the season and looking forward to all your coverage this NFL season.
Absolutely. Until next time, Erin.
Until next time, have a great week. All right, now for our final segment that we do here at Bet, this is Before I Let You Go. Now, typically I'm giving you guys some picks or something in the futures market, and I have a million of things that I could talk about in terms of the futures, but what specific futures, I should say. But what I want to talk about this time, and before I let you go, is the futures market as a whole, because on our shows, on Bet, on Snapchat, different things that we do in terms of the betting content, we always talk about futures. Now, you don't always have to bet a future preseason. You could bet a future during the season. You can wait and try to get a better price on things. I know we talked about the NBA in this episode as well as the NFL, but I really do think the Denver Nuggets are a perfect example of how you can wait to bet on a team. So, for example, you could have bet the Denver Nuggets to win it all throughout the entire season, but heading into the postseason, the week before, they were 11-1 to win the NBA championship. So you're getting a much better price the week before the playoffs were about to start than what you had heading into the season, or I should say not heading into the season, but throughout the season and things like that. Same thing applies for the NFL. We're looking at these numbers right now, but they will indeed change. They're going to change. So if there's a team that you're really high on, and you're like, you know what, let's say the win total hypothetically is at 10, you think they're going to hit 11 wins, but they start out the season slow, that win total comes down to 8.5 or 9, you could grab it then. So the point is, for futures market, you don't always have to bet it preseason. You can try to find really good prices throughout the season as well. And again, it's gambling, so there's a risk. You might not be able to grab a better number, but neither here nor there. I just wanted to mention that when you're betting futures, just remember how these things work, how these markets work. They won't go away as soon as kickoff starts, which I cannot wait for the first game of football, Thursday Night Football. I'm already looking forward to that, and a lot of other things, of course, in the upcoming season. But nonetheless, just want to talk about that as our little before I let you go. And thank you guys so much for watching this episode of Bet. We had Andre Snelling to talk some NBA and all things that are going on with the Suns organization, as well as the Washington Wizards with the Bradley Beal trade that might potentially happen. Again, it's not official, but seems likely to happen. And then talking some NFL futures with Eric Moody. I'm Erin Dolan. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and we'll catch you back here on the next episode of Bet.